What do you mean? In the Good afternoon, everybody. We'll call this meeting of the Woodford County Fiscal Court's Budget and Finance Committee to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Squire Carl.
Here.
Squire Varner.
Here.
Squire Taylor.
Here.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So one thing I'd like to do, if there are no objections, so Steve Hunter, the Director of Planning and Zoning, has there is a comp plan meeting tonight at Versailles United Methodist Church. So he can't give that report in court. Is there any objection from the Budget and Finance Committee for him to just kind of give a brief report about what's going on? Seeing none, Steve, if you would, thank you for your allocation of time on that.
As you heard the judge say, we got 2 comprehensive plan meetings this week, tonight at 6 o'clock here in Versailles, and then Thursday night at Midway at the elementary school. This next phase of kind of going out and meeting with the community is to, we had 4 meetings a year ago where we went out and had general broad meetings and we worked on the goals and objectives. We're done with that. Now we're on to chapters 2 and 3. Chapter 2 and 3 aren't the popular chapters. They're small chapters. They're the background data, population, workforce related information, a little bit of housing, and then community facilities, police, fire, parks, schools. Those are chapters 2 and 3. They're not things that people probably read a lot or look in the book too often, but they're part of the plan, and that's our next 2 chapters to look at. So before we start working on those chapters, we're going to go out and have public meetings. And so tonight and Thursday, the goal is just to present the old chapters. There's not a lot of new information that's going to come out. Got a little bit of things we're going to show them about the 2020 census. But tonight, just talk about what a comp plan is, and then go over chapters 2 and 3, and then solicit comments. So I know the court has a meeting tonight at 5:30, and we're starting at 6, but believe it or not, if you guys got done, reasonable, you could still come out, because the way the format's going to work tonight, I'm going to walk through those 2 chapters. I have like 132 slides in my PowerPoint, but I promise I can get them done in about 29 minutes if I stay on task. But the plan is just present those real quick, and then we're going to open up for public comments. So even though you might not be there for the first part where I'm going through those slides, you would be there just to hear the comments in general that maybe people are going to communicate. We're going to do a little different too. We're going to allow at least 30 minutes for people just ask us questions and make general comments. Hopefully they're focused on chapters 2 and 3, because we're really not talking about the other chapters. But whatever gets said, gets said. And then we're going to stick around one-on-one for 30 more minutes to talk with people that maybe don't want to speak public or whatever. We're also going to have forums there where they can leave notes that way. So again, if you're interested tonight, I think you still could get out there. Even if you got out there at 7, we'd still be probably hearing the public comments. Can't make it tonight, we'll be at Midway Thursday night at 6 o'clock from 6 to 8. So these are 2-hour meetings. Again, the first half hour is going to be going through the slides. The rest of it just to hear comments from the citizens, hopefully related to these 2 chapters. And then once we get that done, then we're going to come back and start working on chapters 2 and 3 based on what we hear. And then when they're done, we'll go back out to the public again and present the new chapters when they're done. So that's kind of the game plan moving forward. So if you guys can make it tonight, 6 o'clock, you heard it, Methodist Church out here, and Thursday night at the elementary school. If you didn't go last time, we're going to be in the cafeteria, and you can sit in these little chairs, and it's just a whole different experience, trust me. If you went last time, that was interesting. But if you guys have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. But I'm going to head out there. We're live streaming tonight. So both meetings will be live streamed if you guys want to watch them that way.
And I think that's a big benefit,
Yeah.
Steve, of doing that.
It's going to be great.
For sure.
Any questions related to tonight?
Well, I wanted to, so I'll ask for questions from the court. I know we've sent down to you and you're looking into the in-family conveyances stuff.
Yes.
Do you have any updates on that? I don't want to put you on the spot.
No, it's great. It's perfect timing. It's almost like we scripted this, but we didn't. I was just talking
really didn't.
to Magistrate Brown about this. He mentioned it. So we do have kind of a solution or a plan on how we'd move forward with that. It's done in draft form. What we're doing, though, that all kind of falls in chapters 2 and 7 because it changes some definitions and it changes some processes in the zoning districts. Currently, you could do an in-family conveyance in what we call the A1, A2, or the CO. So we're making some tweaks to how some of this could work. And the subcommittee that's looking at it from the Planning Commission really hasn't reviewed it in detail yet. They kind of give me a direction on what I was trying to draft. But the city's got a housing task force that's working, if you saw that in the paper. And they're working on stuff that'll just be city-side Versailles oriented, related to affordable housing or housing affordability, whichever way you want to say it. And that'll affect chapters 2 and 7. So we're going to wait until they get done with the task force. They're supposed to have a report back to the city by May the 1st. And there's going to be some stuff that shake out of this task force. And then what we'll do is we'll run that all through the Planning Commission at one time. So it'll have the stuff that'll be what we'll call county side related to the in-family conveyances, and it'll have the city side stuff related to what the housing task force is working on. And that's pretty much in chapters 2 and 7. So we got a fairly major amendment at the Planning Commission right now that's just for sales only, that's more procedural, more city development side stuff. But the plan is to roll those 2 and 7 out at the same time, and we'll have the housing stuff that the city's proposing. And you guys have probably read about some of that. Some of that has to do with maybe proposing manufactured homes as infill development in the city, as well as maybe accessory dwelling units. There's a whole bunch of discussion happening on that task force.
And Steve, if you don't mind, let me make one kind of clarification to your statement there. So once the Housing Affordability Task Force was constituted, they appointed Mayor Stacey Thurman to that committee. That was during the cold snap in Woodford County where we lost a homeless individual. And the mayors and myself wrote a letter to that task force.
Yes.
And we asked them to include in their charge homelessness and unhoused
Yes.
issues, and to include a county representative since the mayor of Midway was on there. And so Goldie Singh, who is in the county, who lives in Aukenway, was also then selected as the county
He's kind of
representative on that board. Those issues, I think, will come up in March at your meetings.
I believe so.
And I think that they then changed the name to Housing Affordability and Attainability.
And attainability. Yeah, there's been 3 meetings so far. They've all been about 2+ hours in length, and I'm ex officio on there. I've been at all 3. So far, all we've done is break into 2 groups. Some are related to the zoning ordinance to deal with the discussion about manufactured homes and how they might be a method to achieve that objective. And then there's been another group talking about a pilot project of some kind, and we broke into 2 halves of the room and just drilling down on some different specific aspects. As far as I know, we haven't talked about anything related to homelessness or anything at that point, but I believe that's the next meeting. There's going to be some of those things brought in. The goal is to be done by May, though. I think that's what I heard is the plan. But again, there's a lot of information being thrown around. There's 16 or better folks, and I think some folks from Habitat have joined that group. There's several citizens that have been attending too. So it's gotten to be a pretty big group.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of ideas floating around right now, definitions and other things. So I'm just taking notes at this point. There's a lot of things directed at the zoning ordinance that they'd like to see fixed. So that's why we're waiting on that to sort of roll all this together.
Yes, and I would clarify and say that I don't think this task force is going to come back with recommendations for the county. But the way the cities and the county have been working together, the fact of the matter is that not having a county representative and having people that didn't live in the city limits on there didn't really make sense.
Yeah.
And then it also doesn't make sense to talk about folks who can't afford housing if you're not talking about folks who don't have housing.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that the co-chairs took that up, and I look forward to their looking into that issue in March, hopefully.
I'll be glad that when we get a little further with the zoning ordinance side, that we're talking about more of the in-family land division, I can bring you more detailed information. But the Planning Commission subcommittee, the advisory committee, has not even reviewed the final stuff yet. Of course, we're kind of waiting on those things to flow together.
Well, I really appreciate the
No,
update.
thank you for the time.
I also appreciate the transparency on the comp plan, hosting the public meetings. I think it's really important that we're having an educational meeting to let folks know what the current comp plan says, because a lot of times, people know the issues that they care about, but they don't understand what happened in 18 and then 10 years ago.
Judge, I'll tell you a quick funny story and I'll get out of here. So Friday night I went home and guess I went to sleep. I don't know what time it was, but I couldn't sleep. I woke up like 2:30 in the morning because my mind was racing. I was thinking about this comp plan and getting my slides. I think I got 132 slides on this PowerPoint. I thought I was asleep, but I'm not sure I was asleep because I was going through each slide in my mind. I could visualize the slides. I was thinking through what I was going to say tonight. So I was either dreaming that or I was really thinking that. And yeah, I woke up and I thought, yeah, I'm on page 61. I could literally see every page of this PowerPoint, so I've memorized it. And I was thinking about what I'm going to say. But then when I got up, I thought, wow, I'm glad that was a dream because I don't need to say half that stuff I just thought about. So I don't know what's going on, but I'm fired up about it. It's been weighing on me. It's just a lot of stuff to go out and ever present to the community, you know. And these chapters are easy, but we got to make sure everyone understands what's in the document first and just break this down, unfortunately, piece by piece so they really can consume it the right way.
Yes.
So we're ready to go.
Let me ask you, does anybody have any questions from Steve about anything we've gone over so far? Then the final thing, and this will bring us back to the Budget and Finance Committee. The mayor and I met with Steve about the planning and zoning budget. Really, really great meeting. Steve is a very detailed and in-depth budgeter. I really appreciate his process, and so we'll continue to work on that.
Yeah, whatever you direct us. And just in general, right now, the way we're drafting the budget, we're not asking for new money at this point. It's the same, maybe even a little less possibly if we get down some other road. But right now, that's the plan. We'll have it at the Planning Commission on the 14th, our preliminary budget. So we'll know exactly, the Planning Commission will formally send you guys our draft then after the 14th of March. So
that's good to know.
thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
I'm going to go back
Steve.
and look over my notes one more time, then I'm heading out to the church.
Hey,
So.
and get some rest.
Yeah, whatever. I got a lot of time for that. See ya.
Thank you. All right. So I'm going to move us back into the full budget and finance committee agenda. I appreciate that indulgence. We did talk about that planning and zoning budget. Most of the time, planning and zoning would act on their budget and send it to us without us even knowing about it. Not that we needed to, but it is nice to know when they're going to do it and when you all will see that, so you can keep that date, that March 15th date. And if there's questions you have of that before it gets to the commission, you could always talk to Steve about that. You all have seen in the materials from the budget that have come through that the CASA request is the same. Former members of the court will recall that it was the previous fiscal court that made the decision to fund the CASA request at $20,000 from the county, and that is their request for the 2024-25 fiscal year. I'm very pleased to report that the Melinda Jameson and the CASA volunteers in Woodford County have been doing God's work in our community, representing children that are the victims of abuse and neglect in our court system. I certainly think this is a valid and worthy continuing expenditure, but since we have it in front of us, I would open up any questions regarding the CASA of Lexington budget. And you also have their full fiscal year-end budget, June 30, 2025, for your review as well. Any questions or comments regarding the CASA request? Seeing none, is there a motion to recommend that be approved in the budget for the full fiscal court? Motion by Squire Carl, second by Squire Varner. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all those members of the committee, please vote and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Again, these are just recommendations to the fiscal court. We have the Bluegrass Community Action Partnership budget request. I don't think that's the full request as of yet, but you will note that the Senior Citizen Center submitted their budget request for 2024. That is their annual $36,000 request from the county. You'll note that the city funds $20,000 of that request. They do private fundraising, they get program income, and a significant amount of grant support. Are there any questions about the Senior Citizen Center budget projection? And Jordan, we have additionally, the Bluegrass Community Action Partnership Community Services. They're requesting $10,000 a year. Now, I will make one note on this. In our discussion about what we do to help provide utility assistance, transportation, education, rental assistance, I still have a budget meeting with Troy Roberts, the director of BG We may find that the county's contribution for that may need to increase for some services. But before I say that, I want to make sure that you all have the details on what we would be doing and increasing. But Troy and I have had that conversation.
Judge,
Yeah, Squire Taylor, you're recognized.
would that be more than the additional request they made in this request than what we funded last year?
Yes. It would be above the $10,000 request that they're
Okay.
requesting this time. But before anybody asks any questions on that, I will have the details of the programs that we would look to add additional assistance in. And it goes back to the additional $5,000 we put in the Woodford Foundation as well. Additional needs to help in emergency circumstances, which for the individuals receiving this funds, it is often in times of crisis.
Well, and from the less limited amount that we've already received from them, it looks like they've already increased their services in that realm from last year already.
Yes, they have. Other questions or comments about the Bluegrass Community Action item? Seeing none, we'll do no motion because that may change, but you know how the iterations are working now. They've come in with the request same as last year, and we'll have a meeting to discuss whether or not that needs to be bumped up. Moving on to the Big Sink multi-use path. You have the construction engineering estimates, the administrative cost estimates, and the estimated flagging cost estimates. Squire Varner, you have any comments regarding this?
Yes, I spoke with Jordan a while ago, but I spoke with Brian Mead
Yes.
from ACOM, and he got, this is all the numbers he had at the time, but I asked him to see if R.J. Corman could give us the maintenance, projected maintenance on these gates, because I think in the original wording, we have to take care of the maintenance, what R.J. Corman deems is maintenance on those gates or that crossing, and I'd just like to have that number to go along with this estimate.
Squire Down, you want to? Let the record reflect that Squire Downey has recused himself from this conversation, being an employee of R.J. Corman Railroad Company. And to return to Squire Varner's inquiry of AECOM and Brian Mead, that's a great question, the maintenance cost of that. Was there any suggestion about a roundabout number that would look like?
No, not right off. It was just that we were going to be in, we would incur the maintenance fees on it, and I'd just like to know how much maintenance we have to do a year or every 3 years or whatever.
That's a wise inquiry. I appreciate you doing that. And just as by way of update, I think that the main thing that we still need to get figured out, and I've been in contact with the post office, is about that post office crossing. My understanding is we have an understanding with the fire department. I think we're good there. This is getting us really close on the railroad discussion. I think we have some other pinch points that might have some questions, but the only other big item would be the post office and a possible pathway from the path to the post office. So Jordan, I don't think we need any approval of that. I think we just know. And when I saw that figure in seeing our TAP grants in the past, I figured that is probably reasonable and in line with what something like that would usually run.
And I just wanted to clarify that is with that TAP grant breakdown as well. So that's obviously that's not the bulk of the county's responsibility.
Correct. Yeah. And I'll also clarify that when they did the US 60 bypass improvements for the railroad, it was well in excess of numbers like that. So just improving rail crossings are expensive ventures. So I think it seems reasonable. Let's move on to the, yeah, thank you, Coach. Move on to the neighborhood grant program. Marywood has submitted an application for the neighborhood grants. Again, our application process remained open. The update on that is that we added a budget allocation for the additional neighborhood grants that were above the amounts allocated. And Madam Clerk, you want to give kind of an update of are there any grants outstanding?
We do have a few grants outstanding. The conditionally approved grants total $13,977.22. So far this fiscal year, we've spent $58,289.16. And just a quick number here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We've closed out 12 of those grants.
Scar Varner, you reckon?
Yes. Jordan, is Stonegate used their up to this 274? Is that what I'm reading?
They still have 274.51 remaining. I think there was lights that they wanted to purchase or something.
They want that or the sign letters.
Okay.
And when I spoke with Linda last, she thought she still had 1,300, but this doesn't show that she does. Okay, all right. Now we'll pass that along.
I can get that number broken down for you. I have the appropriations here.
Thank you.
Squire Varner, would you yield to a question?
Yes.
In the email exchange with Ms. Grubbs, there was some question about the city of Versailles and their neighborhood grant program or some sort of allocation. Do we know if any of that is in play or?
Yes, Mayor Trockett sent Ms. Grubbs an email, and they pulled it off their agenda for 2 weeks. He assured her that they had the funds to come across for their $7,500 of their grant, and they just wanted to see if we conditionally approved and was having the process move forward for the county part of the neighborhood grant request, and then they were going to fund $7,500 of that project. Now, the $5,500 that Ms. Grubbs and Marywood are asking for is just for the sign, the entrance sign there at the main entrance of Marywood.
And the phase 3, is that something that the city is considering doing with them?
Yes, the city. We would just be, our part would just be that sign. The rest of the way I understand it from the mayor and through Ms. Grubbs is the rest of it, the landscaping and things would come from their grant.
Thank you, Squire Varner. So, I'd like it to open up the floor for any questions or discussions regarding the Marywood Neighborhood Grant application.
Yes. Judge, one question I had, and maybe Jordan can elaborate on it, is this Marywood request, when was the last request we received for a neighborhood grant? Has it been,
October 17th, 2023.
that was the last besides this one?
Correct, and then we held our special meeting October 31st. And then this is the last grant we've received
Okay.
since.
Perhaps that's because a certain publication said that there was a moratorium on, which there was not.
Judge, my thinking was that with that gap in there, maybe it's time if we could conditionally approve Marywood and finish up the rest of these projects, that maybe we come to an end for the neighborhood grant program, or put it on pause, so we focus on the rest of the budget issues.
I would say, Squire Varner, that my recommendation is that we would not limit anybody from applying, because it is on a rolling basis, and that's what we did, but I don't want any neighborhood to feel as if we didn't give them the opportunity. We don't have to approve it, we don't have to fund it, but I don't think it would be right not to accept applications through the entire fiscal year. Not accepting applications will limit us in understanding what other needs are out there in the neighborhoods. This is my opinion, and I welcome the court's input and opinion on that as well. Whether or not to fund and approve is different than allowing applications to continue, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you.
Other questions or comments regarding the Marywood Grant neighborhood application? Since it has been some time since we've received the applications, the one thing that I would note is that if we were to conditionally approve this application, we would then enter into an agreement process with the applicants of the neighborhood, and then we would move forward from there as we have since we adopted that agreement process, in order to move through on the administration of the grant. Just as a reminder. So I would ask, any other questions or comments or discussion?
Judge, would that be on the thing if Versailles done what they're supposed to do? Because you're talking two different money. They're saying they're going to do it, and we're talking about doing the other part of it. So if you make a motion on it, wouldn't it be that they do theirs and then we do ours too, so they complete?
Put that in there, I guess.
We could make a contingent approval based on the City of Versailles sharing, or City of Versailles grant program also funding part of the project. We could do that.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because what they're saying is what we've been told, they're going to do $7,500 and some dollars. We're going to finish the program, we're going to do the 55 something. So I feel that should be in there. Plus, I would like to see, we got so other things out in the counties that's not Park County and city. I'd like to see us put a hold on all this and get through our budget and see about our internet and our water, and make sure, because we got, I just see your thing, like we say, we got more money than we ever had, and we're looking at stuff out in the county that we've been looking at for 20 years
Yes.
and 15 years. This is the most money we've ever had, and if we're not going to get help from other resources, I'd like to see us to hold up on some things and see, because we've been moving pretty good and we've done pretty good for the county, for the city so far, given. So I think it's time now to look at it closer. That's just my opinion, because we have 17,000 people out in the counties not getting double whammies. And it's stuff we've been looking at now ever since I've been on the court. So that's my opinion, my thought on it.
And let me just address a few things on that. The first thing is that the internet broadband project, and Squire Taylor, you can talk to this. is the county's portion is fully funded through ARPA funds that we have in a separate account that is ready to go. We even heard last time that our contribution to that may be slightly smaller because of the because some of the internet providers challenged whether or not certain locations were actually receiving good enough internet, and that caused us to lose some of the locations where All Points Broadband wanted to initially provide service. Now, one of the things that needs to be understood is that when All Points Broadband goes into every corner of the county, that's going to create competition whereby either they're going to step up their service or people are going to get, like when MetroNet came into Versailles, they're going to get off whatever service they have and go into the better service, which theoretically should be All Points Broadband because it'll be direct fiber to the home. There was a conversation had about this internet broadband project not serving certain areas of South Woodford County, Southern Woodford County. I have no idea where that rumor started, but it is 100% inaccurate. I think it even made its way to the halls of the Capitol. The plan has been the same. The map that we have in the assistant treasurer's office in there shows the individual locations, and you can see exactly where it is projected that we're serving. Squire Gill made a good point in the conversation last time about being able to challenge whether or not you have good service, and we will be able to do that. But as an aside, I would like folks to look at that map to better understand that. The ad came and met with us last week. Squire Taylor, Director Chandler, myself, and some other folks. And we looked at the BEAD funding information, which shows basically what areas are good, what areas are in the gray area, and what areas will for sure be served. So you all will look, and I'd encourage you to look for your individual districts, and we can actually start some of that challenging. Squire Taylor, you want to kind of elaborate on that?
Yeah, it is a little bit complicated in the overlap of some of these things. So this particular challenge portion is about the BEAD grant funding, which is an FCC federal funds that if circumstances arise appropriately and All Points wants to pursue those funds, there might be an area that we could pursue funds that we would also have further cost reduction for us and All Points on the general project. But there are only some areas that's available. And so I would love for everybody's feedback when looking at that map. You'll see on the map there's kind of a lavender color that is the projected footprint of the current expansion with All Points Broadband, what was projected from the grant process that we are awaiting the contract negotiation between the state and All Points, and then us and All Points. Gives you an idea of where that is. I encourage everybody to look at that. If you have questions, I'd love to look through the map with everybody to make sure we don't miss. For example, Squire Gill, I think that there's an area that we already circled that we wanted your feedback on, that we think that the existing providers may have oversold their speed in a couple places actually in your district. Yeah. So I would like, and we wanted to make sure that we got that correct, and so we can start that challenge process. Now that challenge process in this case is particularly for BEAD, but that data that comes from that could then be utilized in the broadband expansion, the state project as well, and it's a good footprint on that. And if it's found to be successful in the BEAD process, then again, we could potentially pursue federal funds from the FCC for the BEAD grant as well.
Squire Gill.
Where do we get the map?
The map came from the Bluegrass ad, and it's in this in the office right there.
Oh,
that we can
okay.
look at.
Okay, because I called him a couple of weeks ago about that. We needed a list because I really have a hard time believing there are 1,200 houses in the county who are getting 100 megabits per second. I don't see that happening.
Yeah,
and I suspect I'm probably on there. So.
You could be, there's part of your neighborhood that is, and part of your neighborhood that's not. And so I think it's something we really need to
Oh,
look close
really?
at.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, thank you.
Thank you, Squire Gill, and thank you, Squire Taylor. And let me say this. That map is not All Points broadband map, just to be clear. That was provided by Bluegrass Ad, who is doing the federal BEAD funding.
Yeah, they got that information from the FCC and some other data
BEAD
sources.
funding is the grant funding that will come down to us to help fund these projects. But to go ahead and address that rumor. So first of all, the judge executive of Woodford County cannot remove, add, delete, influence, or change any of the locations. That's all done by DAC. So the suggestion that even at the Capitol, where all this state funding comes from, and that's where the state challenge process happened, the suggestion that somehow me, my office, the fiscal court, somebody in county government did something along those lines is just completely inaccurate and misleading, if it's even worse than that. But you will see from the map, Southern Woodford County, which makes complete and total sense, is going to be one of the largest beneficiaries of this All Points broadband project. So, Squire Brown, when you talk about the funding for that, we have that money set aside, earning interest in a bank account right now. It is currently budgeted. It will be continually budgeted, and it will not affect our fiscal balance that you see because it's not part of those funds. It's our leftover ARPA funds from the federal government.
I can tell you where some of that come from, Judge.
Sure.
It come from Frankfurt. The people called down there, and they told them that, and they called me. They told them that they were going to get $16 million, and they told us we're only going to get $9 million or $5 million, whatever, $5 million from them.
That's right.
Okay, they called me and asked me that. I said, well, you better call back Frankfurt, because that's not what we were told, and we were supposed to get 3,000. We're only supposed to get 1,800 right now. Then we might be able to do something later on, but I can't promise you nothing. So they called back. Frankfurt gave them a lawyer to talk to and said they're looking in it too. Now this is hearsay from the people's calling me.
Sure.
So that's where that all started from. And the people are calling, they've been waiting now for 5 years. Windstream told them they're going to get it. This one woman has lost 5 jobs. She's lost 4 jobs, getting ready to lose another one. So the people on the south end is really fed up with Windstream and what they've been told. So that's where it's, and cause, again, I told them, I said, I'm all country, and I'm there, so that's why we could have trouble down here, because that's why we hadn't got the money so far. And I lived here 76 years, so I've seen everything that's going on in the country. We was last to get water, everything, and that's just the way it is if you live out in the country. So that's where some of that come from.
Well, I appreciate that clarification,
Yeah.
and just so you know, that the count, we had no role in that. If we had
It come from the state is what I'm trying
Yeah.
to tell you. It's not that somebody here from Woodford County said that. It come from what they said and what they told us. So we went from, 16 million to 5 million. That's $9 million difference.
but that's not the. I think it was 7 million, and we went down to 5 million based on the
Well, that's what Frankfurt told them.
process. Yes, yes.
My sheriff's office told them that, or that's what they told me.
Probably the broadband office.
Yeah, so-
Well, to answer your question about the funding for that, we have the funding.
Okay.
It's not so. Funding
But we
this
don't know
neighborhood,
really when it's
funding the
gonna be.
neighborhood grant programs will not impact our internet project. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Okay.
Yeah. The South Woodford Water District,
Oh,
we had a good meeting.
just
Yeah.
one
Go
more
ahead,
thing.
Dr. Brown.
The reason why she got real mad about, they called down there and they said they was not in it. They gave them their name and they called the company and they said, we're sorry to tell you you're not in it. And it was on Patterson and a few more roads further down. Now Ford's Mill, part of it was in it and another part wasn't it. But now it looks like what I've seen on the map, they're all supposed to be in it. So, but that come from That come from All Point, and that come from Frankfurt, especially most from All Point.
Yeah, but there was
So-
there was a suggestion that the county, in particular, the judge executive, had something to do with that, and that's what
I
I'm saying.
don't know about
If
it.
I had it, I'd make them do it all, every single
Well,
one.
that's what I told them. We've been after forever.
Yeah, they'd be going down to the end of Hippie
Yeah.
AG. They'd be going everywhere. Squire Gentry. 4 acre. They'd be going all the way to 4 acre. And then we were going to briefly touch on Southwood for Water District. We had a good meeting on that yesterday. And I will get with their board about any anticipated funding requests, but at this time, I don't anticipate that there will be. That could change, but educated guess would say that we will not have a allocation in the budget for any Southwood for Water District funding.
Judge, can I ask you another thing?
Yes, sir.
When he was talking yesterday, we asked him about how much water, what it's costing now, and we asked him how much we're paying more in Midway and other places.
Yeah.
So it was $7 more right now. It's gonna be more than that because the $2 million that we borrowed, or they borrowed, I didn't borrow nothing, and we didn't either, that it's gonna go up higher. Some of the estimates that's been to really get, and I really understand more about it, because the way the district is long in certain spots, like at 33 and 169, where we're having trouble there, and then the further you get down, we're having trouble, and then further you get down, when it starts downhill, the water gets better, and some it's too much.
Yeah.
Which they're really working on and really doing a good job. But you're still maybe looking at about $5 million of the what you call it. So that's why I thought the money that we got, why can we help? Because it's going to be awful high cost of getting water down there. And the reason why that's overgrown is because the way our zoning and stuff is, they didn't want it at the north. They didn't want it in Millville. Now the planning and zoning is talking about maybe changing it and make it wider where you can do more different, which that's something to look at a later date. But we've already got the problem on the south end. And that's why I was trying to say to look into it, because the 20-some years I've been on court, we never had this kind of money. And I feel, myself, personal opinion, we're helping. I know we got people live in town, but it's like double dipping if we need it out in the county, because they're already getting better service. So that's all I'm talking about is, well, I'd like for you to look into it.
Water service?
Well, all service. They don't even like the police service, so they like the county service on the south end. They better than they did what we got now, because they know John and know everybody and all that. But that's a different story, so ain't no use working on that horse. But that's just where I'm coming from, and that's what people are telling me to bring back to y'all. It's not, I've got good water service. That's the thing, but we're right at a peak way it growed, that it looked like it was mismanagement. And maybe where we growed so much, it's not so much big. Well, I think it is. I just make it easy. But I think we need to look at it real close, because it's going to get awfully expensive. And if they change the zoning, we're going to have more growth different places instead of out there. But we already got it out there, whether you like it or not. I mean, it's there. And zoning caused all that. But our land, so that before they changed all that, was about $2,000 an acre. Then it went to $6,000, and now it's about 10 or 15, and maybe 20 on some of the small. So it had its, with Midway not getting, doing what they want to do and save their land. And then another thing that I found out, I'm talking on the rock we're on, we're going to have harder to give to the south end and part of Millville, and we are Midway, because of the dirt and everything. And we're on more of a fault way he talked, and you're all Midway and stuff. So I called both of my kids and told them they better take out what do you call it when you have a earthquake. I've had it for 20-some years.
Well, let's hope not. Let's
I
pray
hope not, but it's there.
Well, thank you, Squire Brown. And I would note that in the beginning of the neighborhood grant program, we went and we analyzed the city grants, the grants that happened within the city of Versailles, and we factored those in. And so I couldn't tell you exactly what the breakdown is, but when you talk about how much the city spent in Versailles on their neighborhood grant programs, it's considerably more than we have, but we've served a lot more folks in the county, which has, which I think has ultimately benefited everybody in a fairly equitable way. Other questions or comments regarding the neighborhood grant for Marywood?
I got one more.
Okay, Squire Gill, you
The,
want to defer to?
what is the most we done out in the county?
The most?
Yeah, per thing that we spent.
I mean, it's,
I mean, not the whole, each person, was it 6,000?
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, we just got done, or maybe that, sales spend 7,500, we're gonna spend 5,500 for one community. So that's what I'm talking about. Why should we go, I don't have any problem since we already done it. I don't have any problem finishing this up. The problem I have with going on, because I know it's more people, but we got more people out in the county could use it too if they want it, but they don't need it maybe as bad as you do in town, but that's what I'm talking about.
Well, I think I mean, the reality is, and again, we analyzed this. So the suburban areas, Squire Gill's district in particular is a suburban area with individual neighborhoods, and they have more need of it because they have these common areas that are not necessarily taken care of. But we have, I would say, I mean, I'm pretty sure, but I don't want to go out on a limb, but my guess is we spent more money in the county neighborhoods than we've assisted with grants in the city neighborhoods.
Well, I think we should, and that's where I feel we should spend it all out there because the city's supposed to take care of the city. See, I was on the court when we done that, and then the other court I was on, they pulled away from that because of the problems we got in and stuff, and it worked because he left this court a bunch of money. Before we didn't have it, the judge pulled away, and he pulled away, let them on theirs, and we done on theirs. And so that's why I'm saying that, because I've already seen that work good, and then I've seen it work bad.
Squire Gill.
Yeah, thank you. I think we've completed more of these projects than 12. The Edmonds Cross, it's just, I think, at least in my district, all the invoices that they requested have been paid. So they essentially came in a little under budget. And so I would say that Edmond Cross Townhomes is done. Derby Hills knows they have $564 left, but that they hadn't requested anything else in their application. So I thought that project was done. They could certainly submit more if they're able, but that was everything that they requested in the grant application. And also, let's see, the village, they've only got a balance of $145, but there again, I believe everything was paid that they requested in their application. And the same for Locust Grove. It says on here that Locust Grove requested $5,308.40, and it's been paid. So that's 4 more that are probably done.
And we'll update that. We'll look
Okay.
at that and get everything updated. I appreciate that information. I would also just remind, we've had this conversation already, but we budgeted $40,000 in the year that we didn't spend it, so 0 expense, and we budgeted 40, and then we budgeted 40 again, and essentially we have budgeted 40 a third time. which would be $120,000, and we haven't spent that amount of money. Now, that doesn't mean that we carried over that amount. We should have budgeted 80 or budgeted 120, but we're carrying over unspent amounts into the next budget year, either way you look at it. It's not like we budgeted 40 and it was 80 and we had never budgeted anything in the past. But Squire Varner, are you in position to make a recommendation to the fiscal court? Would you like to move for its recommendation of its conditional approval upon the understanding of the city's contribution to their request?
Yes, and one question, Judge. Do we know how many neighborhoods in Woodford County can qualify for this? Because we've had 22 apply.
That was on the initial spreadsheet done by Kenneth Johns, which I don't have in front of me.
Okay,
But we can get that information, yeah.
okay. And Squire Brown, I have the email from Mayor Troggett that he is committing the $7,500 for that, for this project. But I so move to recommend to the full fiscal court to conditionally approve Marywood's neighborhood grant.
And subject to the city's
Yes.
contribution thereon.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for that motion. Open up the floor for any questions or comments. Seeing none, all those on the committee in favor, please vote and signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion carries. That is the total sum of our Budget and Finance Committee meeting. If we are prepared, we'll move into the special meeting of the Committee of the Whole for the Fiscal Court. Are we ready? Seeing that we are, the Budget and Finance Committee will be adjourned. I'll call this meeting of the Committee of the Whole to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Squire Taylor,
Here.
Squire Gentry,
Here.
Squire Varner,
Here.
Squire Farrell,
Here.
Squire Downey,
Here.
Squire Flanagan, Squire Gill,
Here.
Squire Brown.
Here.
The first item will be the indigent fund request. You have an application before you. That is a $500 request. We've reviewed that application, discussed with the payee, and everything appears to be in order to provide that $500 request. Is there a motion for same?
Make a motion down.
Motion by Squire Brown.
Second.
Second by Squire Carl. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the request, please vote and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. And the motion carries. The next item is an executive session pursuant to KRS 61810C. That is the subsection regarding potential or pending litigation. We have no pending litigation, but we have something to discuss. So I would ask that, actually everybody's already out, but that our Assistant County Attorney Phyllis Mattingly remain with us. Madam Treasurer, you can stay in or you're more than excused to go, but we will go off the record. busy returning. And so we are returning to open session from closed session, executive session pursuant to KRS 61810C. There was no action taken by the fiscal court. There was a motion by Squire Taylor, second by Squire Carl to return to open court. Will you all renew those motions for the record, please?
Motion.
Motion.
Second. Thank you. All those in favor, please vote, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Again, no action is taken in executive session. There's no additional action to come before the court for this committee of the whole. Does anybody else have any questions or comments before we adjourn? Seeing none, we are adjourned, and we will see you at 5:30 for our regular meeting. Thank you.
Anybody wants to take a couple minutes to look
We
at
got
that map?